Hi, movie recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi body horror movie called The Substance. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. The movie begins with an egg yolk. A scientist's hand injects it with something, and after a moment, it splits into two. That egg yolk just fucking morbed. The movie opens as we are introduced to our protagonist. Elizabeth Sparkle, she is a 50-year-old actress who has achieved great success in her field. Even won an Oscar, however. The star's glory days are gradually coming to an end, as she no longer possesses the youthful charm she once had. Despite her age, Elizabeth is still in great physical shape and currently hosts a popular morning aerobics program. One day after her usual program, Elizabeth wants to relieve herself, but discovers that the women's restroom is out of order. As she is desperate, she sneaks inside the men's restroom and enters a stall. While there, Elizabeth accidentally overhears her producer, Harvey, entering and talking on the phone with someone. He begins to trash talk about Elizabeth, claiming that she now looks like a grandma and needs to be replaced by a younger woman. Hearing this, our protagonist is taken aback and deeply disappointed. Later, we see Elizabeth and Harvey having lunch, where he is costingly devouring shrimp. During the meal, he asserts that he has to give the audience what they want, and casually mentions that he intends to fire her. This devastates Elizabeth, and she leaves without saying anything. On the way home, she notices some workers tearing down a billboard with her picture. She becomes so upset that she loses focus and ends up wrecking her car. Sometime later, Elizabeth wakes up in a hospital without any major injuries. A doctor tells her that his wife is a big fan of hers, but the frustrated actress can't hold back her tears. Observing this, a young and attractive male nurse approaches her and tries to comfort her. He examines her back with interest and mutters to himself that she's a good candidate. Afterward, he hands her jacket back and assures her that she's fine. During this interaction, Elizabeth notices a peculiar birthmark on his hand. Later, when she leaves the hospital, Elizabeth discovers a USB drive in her jacket, along with a note that reads, "It changed my life upon returning home." She plugs the USB into her TV, and it turns out to be an advertisement for a product called The Substance. The product promises to create a perfect clone of a person, one that is younger and an improved version. The advertisement states that both versions will be the same person, and they must switch between their younger and older selves every 7 days at first. Elizabeth finds the idea absurd and tosses the USB drive into the trash can. However, after giving it some thought, she retrieves it and calls the number written on its back. An operator greets her, and Elizabeth states that she wants to order the substance. The man then asks for her address, which she nervously provides. After that, he gives her the address of a location and abruptly hangs up without saying any more, leaving the woman confused. Next morning, Elizabeth receives a key card with the number 503 in her mail. She immediately heads to the address provided by the operator and arrives at a dark alley in a shady location. Using the key card, she unlocks the gate and enters an immaculate room filled with several lockers. She then opens the locker labeled 503 and grabs a package from inside. Upon returning home, Elizabeth grows impatient and quickly opens the package. Inside, she finds several ingredients neatly packed, including an activator stabilizer, a switch kit, and food for both versions. There are also instructions stating that the stabilizer must be administered daily and taken from the primary person. Most importantly, the two must switch places every 7 days without exception, and they must always remember that they are one person. It's a little bit like Gremlins, but so much more fucked up. Next, Elizabeth heads to the bathroom and injects herself with a green liquid, which is an activator. This causes her pupils split, and she groans in agony as her back begins to rip apart. Elizabeth soon loses consciousness, and we see a whole person emerging from her back. It turns out to be a young and attractive version of Elizabeth. She seems to understand what is happening, though she quickly sews up the back of the older Elizabeth. Shortly after, as the young woman is taking a shower, she feels dizzy and also has a nosebleed. This makes her realize that she has to follow the instructions, or else she'll die hence. She quickly extracts stabilizer fluid from Elizabeth's spine, administers it into her, making her feel rejuvenated. The next day, the young woman notices an ad in the newspaper placed by Harvey, looking for young and attractive women. She decides to give it a shot and soon arrives at the audition wearing a swimsuit. There she delivers a stunning performance and introduces herself Asil, which impresses the horny judges. The young woman immediately captures Harvey's attention as well. He seems enchanted by our beauty and hires her for the aerobics show. Sue then informs him that she won't be available every other week because she has to take care of her sick mother. However, the perverted producer is unwilling to lose her, so he agrees to adjust to her schedule. The next day, Sue has a photo shoot, after which billboards featuring her image adore in the streets. She then spends the rest of the week rehearsing and updating her wardrobe. However, the week soon comes to an end, and according to the rules, the two must switch bodies. Therefore, she heads to the bathroom and exchanges consciousness with Elizabeth, using a switching cat moments later. She passes out while Elizabeth finally awakens. The older woman is initially confused to see the strange girl, but she soon realizes that it is her own younger version. The next day, Elizabeth goes to work, but Harvey casually informs her that she has been replaced. The woman is upset at first, but feels a bit of relief when she learns that her replacement is none other than Sue. Following this, her days become dull, and she spends her time scheduling the transition, watching TV and getting the refill kit of substance for the next week. It almost seems like Elizabeth has lost the will to live, and all she cares about is fame. After the designated week passes, Sue wakes up with excitement. She spends her days doing photo shoots and appearing in high-profile commercials. One day, Sue brings a young man home, and the two begin making out in the living room. However, during this time, she suddenly experiences a nosebleed and remembers that it's time to switch their bodies. Unwilling to interrupt the lost and debauchery, she heads to the bathroom and approaches the unconscious Elizabeth. She then takes the stabilizing tube and extracts more fluid from her body, without thinking about the consequences. This finally makes her feel better, and she returns to continue her fun with the young douchebag. The next morning, when Elizabeth wakes up, she is horrified to find one of her fingers decaying. Panicked, she immediately calls the operator and informs him that Sue abused her time and now her finger has decayed. She then asks how to undo this, but the man responds that both must strictly follow the rules and respect the switch of bodies. He tells her that there is no way to fix her finger, but urges them to be more careful from now on. In the afternoon, Elizabeth heads to a coffee shop where an old man keeps staring at her. She soon notices that the man has the same birthmark on his hand as the young nurse who treated her at the hospital. Moments later, some items fall out of his pocket, and Elizabeth spots a keycard labeled 203, which looks just like her own. This makes her realize that the nurse from the hospital is, in fact, this old man. He then casually asks how she's doing, and Elizabeth replies that she's fine. The man reveals that soon their alternate versions will start consuming them. It will become harder to remember who has the right to exist. He then asks Elizabeth if her younger self has started consuming her. Yet, however, Elizabeth becomes too scared to answer and hastily leaves the cafe. In the following weeks, Stu skyrockets to fame, quickly becoming the nation's #1 star. One day, Harvey informs her that ever since she joined the show, their ratings have been rapidly increasing. Therefore, the TV channel now wants her to host the New Year's program. In a few months, Sue is thrilled by the opportunity, is willing to do whatever it takes to secure it. Except for following the rules, probably as a result, she begins taking extra time in the spinal fluid from Elizabeth. This causes Elizabeth to age dramatically, with most of her body parts beginning to decay. Her hair and teeth begin falling out, and she looks over a century old. She tries to complain to the operator, but he tells her it's their problem to solve on their own. The man states that she can end this at any time. But Elizabeth also doesn't want to give up such a beautiful second version of herself. In the following weeks, Elizabeth spirals into heavy drinking and binge eating. During her conscious days, a frustrated Sue complains to the operator about the old woman's habits. While she has to work hard all week, she claims that she needs more time for herself. But the man again reminds her that they must respect balance, and that despite the two bodies, there are still one person. One day, Sue crosses all limits and extracts a large amount of fluid from Elizabeth. She then carefully stores it in several tubes and decides to delay the body swap for as long as possible. In the next scene, 3 months have passed, and we see Sue and her boyfriend at the apartment. Turns out that her highly anticipated New Year's program is finally happening. Tomorrow, at this critical moment, Sue gets a nosebleed and feels extremely ill. She goes to inject some fluid, but unfortunately discovers that she's already used all of it. In a panic, Sue calls the operator and begs for more fluid. However, he responds that Elizabeth is the only source, and they need to switch bodies to replenish the supply. Sue explains that she has an important event tomorrow, but the operator refuses to listen to her rambling, hangs up using the last of her strength. She then crawls to the bathroom to begin the body-switching process. Meanwhile, her boyfriend hears noises coming from outside, and with terrible acting chops asks if she's okay. By this time, Elizabeth has woken up. Now, a grotesque figure with a misshapen hump yells at him to leave her apartment. And hearing such a terrifying voice, the man just runs his big old ass out of there And here afterward, Elizabeth looks at herself in the mirror and is horrified by a grotesque appearance. She immediately calls the operator and says she wants to stop the experience. The man responds that they will deliver the termination kit to her locker. Then he hangs up the next morning. Elizabeth heads to the locker room and retrieves the final batch. When she returns home, she drags Sue's unconscious body into the living room. She opens the package and prepares to inject the termination fluid into the young woman. But moments later, she notices a bouquet sent for Sue, along with a note wishing her good luck for tonight. This makes her feel bad. So she changes her mind and instead tries to revive the girl. Just then, Sue wakes up. And it turns out that the half-injected termination serum caused a glitch, allowing both of them to become conscious at the same time. Sue notices the half-empty syringe and quickly realizes what Elizabeth had planned to do. Furious, she attacks the older woman with brutal force. After a long and violent struggle, Sue finally manages to overpower Elizabeth and beats her to death. Following this, she gets ready for her big night, feeling no remorse or guilt about her actions. In the evening, she attends the New Year's Eve performance, where she is dressed in a gorgeous gown. Everything seems to be going perfectly. But she doesn't have the stabilizer fluid needed to maintain her condition. As a result, Sue begins to feel increasingly sick. She rushes to the bathroom, where she shockingly notices that her teeth are starting to all out. Sue tries to ignore it, as this is the biggest night of her life. However, while in the elevator, she notices her fingernails have detached, and her ear also suddenly falls off. Panic-stricken Sue rushes back home, where she finds some leftover activator serum that Elizabeth used to create her, since it's a very important night for her. She injects herself with it, believing it will help her create another youthful body. Sue then painfully passes out. But instead of a beautiful woman, a bizarre flesh-like mass bursts forth from her spine. This mutated entity called Monstroliso is a grotesque, hybridized abomination blending Elizabeth's and Sue's features. It looks horrifying with multiple eyes and arms, and even Elizabeth's face protruding from its back. This thing makes Professor Quirrell look like Carmen Electra. Despite her condition, Elisa Sue decides to attend the event and puts on the dress that Sue is wearing. She then cuts Elizabeth's face from the giant portrait, applies a lipstick to it, and wears it to cover her own face. Next, she pierces diamond earrings into her disfigured flesh and styles her hair, which is... yeah, it's not really. I don't know, pleased with her work. She rushes to the event ready to host the New Year's Eve celebration. The scene then cuts to the event, where everyone is eagerly awaiting Sue's arrival. However, instead of her, the horrifying creature appears wearing Elizabeth's face as a mask, which leaves everyone flabbergasted. Regardless, she begins to address the audience. But soon her mask falls off, as the crowd sees her grotesque base. All hell breaks loose and they start calling her a monster. Most of them flee in terror, but one gentleman wields a baseball bat and hits Eliza Sue's head, causing it to explode. A fountain of blood then bursts out, drenching most of the audience present. But even after being decapitated, she regenerates and transforms into a more distorted form. In the final scene, the mutilated remnants of Eliza, Sue finally managed to escape from the theater. She soon stumbles into the street, causing her entire body to explode. Elizabeth's face then separates from the wreckage, but she continues to crawl along. Eventually, it finds a resting place, which is Elizabeth Sparkle's star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. As she gazes up at the night sky, she recalls her days of fame before she completely melts away. The next morning, after a street sweeper cleans up the mess, only a cracked and faded star is what is left of Elizabeth Sparkles. Fill out, thank you for watching.